Oversight once again. We're good to have everybody here. We have an agenda already published and out. We're going to ask this, if you've got sign-up sheets, you got a sign-up sheet for anybody who wants to speak. Just get it down there if somebody wants to do that, so have that in place. And we're going to have our newest senator, Sam Watson, he's housebroke and brought over here to the Senate. And we got him sworn in this morning, and we're glad to have him from the House and a good representative from the great town of Moultrie, Georgia, correct? So if you'll bless this proceeding, please, sir.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we just thank you for this day. Thank you for all your many blessings. Just thank you for this great state that we live in. Just ask and pray that you'll watch over us and lead us and guide us as we make decisions for this great state. Just ask and pray that you be with our families and our businesses while we're away. Just watch over them, keep everybody safe. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, sir. Our next is if you'll look in your folders, is the adoption of the rules. There's no change from the last year at all. Kind of the same thing from that standpoint that we had. And if anybody there, if we want to make a motion that we adopt our rules, and we got that. Shake Ramon. We got it first. Okay. Got a second from Senator Merritt. And any further discussion? All in favor say aye. All opposed? All right, we have rules to run on. All right, that's fantastic. And we are honored to have Senator Albers with us. And he's going to be our lead-off first batter of the series as we start forth. So I'm going to see if I can make you a witness mic turn on and see if that gives you some sound. No. Try now.
Testing.
We have it now.
Can you
okay.
hear me now?
I can hear you now. Sounds like a good commercial. All right. Okay. We will let Senator Albers, SB 3, and we're working from, because there has been some revisions, LC 44222-0S.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of this committee. I am honored to present Senate Bill 3 to you. I am here today helping to bring forward an initiative that was started by our very own Lieutenant Governor, Burt Jones, the president of our Senate body. In working together, we want to continuously make sure that as a state, we're assessing the needs of the job openings and making sure those needs are commensurate with the right amount of skills, degrees, other certifications, as well as time and experience. And what we've found over time is things have changed. Where we used to mandate a college degree for almost everything, now we're looking at that differently through either a technical school or certifications. In other cases, years ago, we didn't even look at a college degree that may need it now for certain positions. And as the state continues to evolve, but so do the industries around it, we want to make sure that we're doing the right thing through our state agencies. I'm very proud of the work the Lieutenant Governor brought forward. And also in working, you'll notice the meat of this starts on page 2. Beginning on line 16, the great work by the Department of Administrative Services, who is working on some of these initiatives today, and this will be a boost to them in order to make this possible. And what this says, in a nutshell, is we're going to regularly assess these needs to make sure they're commensurate with the jobs. Let me give you an example. If there was a technology job that required a bachelor's degree and 10 years experience, well, sometimes that technology was only created 2 or 3 years ago. So you couldn't have 10 years experience, but someone might think, well, I can't apply. Or we have to look at it a different way. As an example, Bill Gates would be unqualified for that job. He never graduated from college, but arguably he's one of the most successful people in technology that has ever walked God's green earth. So we want to make sure that we're looking at these things appropriately. I think this is a great method to do that, and I won't overtalk it any further than that, but if there are any questions, I would gladly yield.
We have a members. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Senator Albers. Will there be any input from professional organizations as far as licensing, education requirements? Are we giving that any consideration as we're trying to reduce?
That's a great question. Oh, there we go. Are we back? All right. Senator, that's a great question, and the great work by our Department of Administrative Services collects a lot of outside information as well as inside parties and brings it all together, and they do a good job of trying to do this work. We're tasking them now to take it to a new level to relook at all positions as opposed to what might just be a new position created. So yes, the department is here. We have worked very closely with them, and they are doing just exactly what you have suggested.
Thank you.
14, is that? All right, our new senator coming. We're glad you're active
Hey,
for us today.
thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's more of a statement than a question, I guess, but good bill, and I know we have a lot of state agencies that are having trouble finding employees, and turnover is high, and this bill will definitely help a lot of those agencies that are looking for employees to manage our state and look after the people of our state. So thank you for bringing the bill.
Thank you, Senator.
All right. Any other questions?
When the time is right.
When the time is right, I think the time could be right. Sir, what number are you? Number 12, we got you, sir. Senator
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion do pass.
Motion do pass by Senator Robinson. Do we have a second? Second from Senator Watson. Okay. Any other discussion? Oops, any other discussion? None? Okay. Okay. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? None? And this is the LC 4422220S.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman,
Senator
members.
Albers, for bringing that, and we wish you luck as you carry forth. You were the first senator to get a bill heard in our chamber, so now you're taking this one forward, the first senator out of the box with government oversight. So keep up first.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you,
I
sir.
appreciate it.
All right, next, Senator Kirkpatrick's SB 23, and LC number is 540158S. Looks like a interesting bill, and reading through it, and so we're going to depend upon you to give us clarity and tell us what it's all about.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. And also, the sign-up sheet is down there for anyone who wants to sign up from that standpoint. And then you can go ahead, Senator.
You ready?
Ready. We're ready.
Okay. LC 540158S is what I have. This bill is a cleanup bill, and it is intended to repeal or correctly name a number of boards, commissions, and committees that are currently in our statute. So at the risk of boring you all, I'm going to walk you through each section if that's okay. Section 1 is a committee name correction for a Senate committee. Section 2 is also a committee name correction. Section 3 has to do with the Georgia Education Authority for Schools, which is not operational according to the Department of Education. Okay. The one for universities is a separate entity. Section 4 is about the Georgia Rail Passenger Authority Overview Committee. It's not operational and hasn't been for a long time. Section 5 has to do with the Georgia Palliative Care and Quality of Life Advisory Committee. That committee doesn't operate, has not met since 2020. And after I started on this bill, I heard from the Department of Public Health, and they had 2 additional committees that have been abolished by statute, but are still somehow in the statute, and that is the Kidney Disease Advisory Committee, which was abolished by Senate Bill 372, and the Office of Women's Health reporting requirement was also abolished by that same bill. Section 6 is about the Partnership for Public Facilities and Infrastructure Act Guidelines Committee. No one knows what that committee is, and it is not operating. Section 7 is the World War I Centennial Commission. This commission is finished with its work. Section 8 is the State Personnel Oversight Commission. No one has been able to find that one. It's not operating. Section 9 is the Small Business Assistance Advisory Council. This council is not operating. Section 10 is the Commission on Regional Planning. This commission is also not operating. Section 11 is the Commission on Preservation of the State Capitol. This commission is not operating. And Section 12 is a committee name correction, like the first couple sections. I appreciate the help of Legislative Counsel in identifying and helping to clean up these parts of our law. I haven't heard from anybody who was named in any of these groups who indicated that they were operating. So I would ask for your favorable consideration. Thank you.
Thank you for your work of finding all the people who aren't working, or at least committees that are not working. Thank you for that work in doing that. Do we have any questions from anybody that's on this cleanup bill here? Okay, don't see any. Move due pass by Senator Albers. Second. Ms. Alley. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Any more questions? None? Okay. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? All right. You are passed that bill for those that do not exist anymore, and that's LC 540158S, correct?
Correct.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay. And you are also the next one on the agenda as I see it here. So
I'll just stay up here then.
you'll
Mr.
just
Chair.
stay there, and we will bring forth, you have a guest, it looks like.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, with your permission, I'd like to ask Mr. Todd Edwards to join up here
Okay.
with ACCG.
Okay, this is on SB 19, which is LC 4422225S.
Yes, sir.
And you and I have talked a little bit on, this is on a hearing only. Looks a little more complicated than the last one from that standpoint, and so we'll look forward to you telling us about SB 19.
Well, I'm not sure it's more complicated than the last one, but it may be more controversial than the last one. Mr. Chair, thank you. This bill is about transparency. Some of you may have seen the news coverage about the current situation with certain Superior Court clerks, not all, pocketing passport fees as personal income. I have with me a number of news articles about this dating back to last November, when the media picked up on this situation in one of my counties, Cobb County. A whistleblower brought this to the attention of many who had no idea that this situation was happening in Cobb and many other counties. In addition to our Cobb County court clerk's salary of $169,000, our clerk took home an extra $425,000 in passport fees over the last 2 years, in addition to another $84,000 in expedited shipping fees. That part is being investigated by the GBI, the expedited shipping fees. It turns out that this has been happening in other counties. For example, Fulton, DeKalb, and Gwinnett counties. In DeKalb in 2021, the clerk there took home $209,860 in passport fees. In Fulton in 2021, $362,635. And in Gwinnett, over a 9-month period between March and December of 2022, they just started this program, $96,695. The State Department allows $35 for passport application fees, and about half the counties in Georgia provide passport services, and about 50 counties allow the fees to be taken as personal income. Obviously, most U.S. Postal Services also provide this service. This bill requires disclosure of the fees. It calls for the fees to be shared between the county and the clerk's office because the county is, those resources are being used to process these applications. The original bill calls for a 50-50 split, and in the substitute, I did add a mechanism for counties to adjust the percentage by a written agreement with the county. Section 1 applies to the Superior Court clerks, and Section 2 to the probate judges who also provide this service. The bill does not allow currently the fees to be taken as personal income. The clerks are elected officials. They, of course, like we do, certainly know the salary when they run for office. And if counties need to supplement the clerk's income, there are other ways to do it, and this is not the right way to do it. And I would just finish my initial remarks by saying that just because something is legal doesn't make it right. And with that, I'd like to ask Mr. Edwards if he has anything to add.
All right, let's see. I don't know if you're live on your mic or not.
Testing, testing.
I've got him. Okay, as far as that. And anybody who wants to sign up, the sign-up sheet is down there. So I will turn that over to you, Todd, so that you can
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
enlighten us.
I'm Todd Edwards. I'm with the Association of County Commissioners of Georgia. The senator went through a lot of the information. I'm going to go very quick. If you have any questions, please stop me and feel free to ask. So federal law allows local government officials to keep passport processing fees as long as state law designates that. Georgia state law does designate that. That's the bill before you today addressing that issue. Currently, around 78 Georgia counties, clerks and court offices, and 8 probate judge offices are processing U.S. passport applications. Overall, it's a $130 fee that goes to the federal government. $35 fee can be kept at the local level. Clerks and probates are free to use this money however they deem appropriate. ACCG cannot readily determine how many applications are processed, though the fees thus the fees that are collected from this. There are several methods. We polled the counties a few years ago about how these fees are spent. Some of them deposit into the county's general fund. Some clerks and probates may split it somehow between the clerk or probate's office and the county general fund, and several of clerks and probates keep this money as personal compensation, as mentioned, although it's with county resources, time, overhead, etc. Senator Kirkpatrick read to you a few of the examples that were in the press recently. It's ACCG's longstanding position that this money be deposited into county general funds. Obviously, that may not be politically feasible. I think it's a good balance reached between the bill before you today, 50% to the county, 50% to the office, not to be used as personal compensation. And we realize that having, again, that might, one moment please. Therefore, we believe it's a fair, balanced bill, Senate Bill 19. It calls for transparency. First up, it calls for disclosure of all these fees when they are collected to the county and thus the public. 50% goes to the county, 50% to the clerk. Local legislation can change this distribution. That's in the bill before you. So kind of written agreement between the county and the clerk or the probate's office. To us, it just makes good policy sense. And I did have a few, to answer some of the questions that may pop up today. As salaries, you may hear that if this money is not collected, then the office simply won't do the passport application processing. And we certainly don't want that at ACCG. This is a public service. It's valuable to the public. We just would hope that y'all would address it somehow on how this money is being kept as compensation. Second, if local governments or if you, the General Assembly, wanted to raise the money, if this bill were to pass or give additional compensation to the clerk, y'all can do so through local legislation, and local governments can currently do so to local supplements to the clerk or the probate judge's salary. Third, the cap on any salary count, okay, so let me skip over to the taxes, another question that's been raised. It's been said, or some people interpret it, that this money, when collected by the county clerk or the probate judge, is taxed for income tax purposes. Our attorneys don't see it that way. If it's kept as personal compensation, then certainly it would be taxed for federal purposes. However, federal law states that when the execution or processing services are provided by an official of a state or local government or the United States Postal Service, the state or local government may retain the fee. It does not say to be kept as personal compensation. It points out to the office. I noted earlier that some of these, the probates and clerks were sharing this split with the county governing authority. I don't believe they're currently paying income tax on the money that is deposited in the county's general fund. Again, if it's kept as personal compensation, yes, definitely, but not if it's sent to either there or the county's office. The other question that's come up is a lot of y'all might have heard of, what salaries clerks are making. And I have in front of you, I believe this was in your folders, a handout on calculating Superior Court clerk salaries. And right up front, what we call under the population column there, that's what we call a base minimal salary. That is in statute. But also keep in mind, and up top, the supplements that can be received by clerks for doing certain duties at the local level. There's, for instance, if they serve as clerk to the juvenile court, you add that to the base salary. I won't go through all of this, but this is how these salaries increased. And what you see in statute often is far less than what they're actually receiving in salaries. They get a state COLA every time state employees get one. Last one, 2020, that has to be figured into it as well. Last year you gave, or for this current fiscal year, you gave state employees a $5,000 pay raise. That goes to clerks of court and probates as well. Again, the local supplements, if any, add those up. That's how you determine the salary. We conducted a salary survey last year, and the columns and the charts in back break it down by a base salary, longevity, add the COLAs. So if there's a discussion on the salaries, I wanted y'all to have the most correct information possible, recognizing that it's not just what's listed as the base minimum salary in statute. I will add that many clerks and probates are paid by local act or legislation, so whichever is higher. You do all the calculations here, you see what's in local legislation, they get the higher of the two. But if you do get questions on salary, I did want y'all to have that information to make the best decisions with it.
Thank you, Mr. Edwards. We have a question from Senator Albers, I believe it is. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Senator Kirkpatrick, for bringing this very important bill forward. I applaud your efforts. Two quick questions that could either come from you or Todd. I know several years ago we addressed a concern with tax commissioners who were taking a percentage of fees, and I believe we've corrected that action in most cases, unless there's an existing contract in place that will end out. Is that correct?
That is correct. The last legislation that did pass, I believe, only applied to Fulton and Gwinnett counties. It did put in that provision. However, it did not apply to current contracts, which has been executed between the tax commissioner and the cities.
And aside from that specific issue, are you aware of any other elected official in the state of Georgia that gets paid additional compensation?
I am aware that probate judges can collect fees as personal compensation for dealing with vital records, searching death certificates, marriage certificates, etc. However, the General Assembly saw fit some time ago to cap that amount at $7,500 of the fees that can be kept as personal compensation.
Thank you. And this really started with the news story that broke about the fees for Cobb County. What was the total compensation that the Cobb County clerk received, if you could let me know?
I may or may not have that. Give me a moment, please.
I think Senator Kirkpatrick may know.
Yeah, well, her salary is $169,000 plus all the other factors that Mr. Edwards noted, and I don't have a gross number for you.
It was reported that over the past $220,000, and I can't remember if that was in the past year or 1 year alone, on top of the salary provider.
He's talking about the fees.
Correct. I had heard that number even closer to $400,000.
So
over the
That's
last
over
200 a
2
year.
years.
Okay. So if I do some quick jungle math then of 220 plus 169, that means that clerk alone was getting paid $389,000, which is twice what our governor makes almost, and just shy of what the President of the United States makes. Thank you for bringing this bill forward. We need to correct this issue.
Whoops. Senator Merritt, you are next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a question, Mr. Edwards. So the question of salaries and compensation has come up before, back in 2012. I believe the ACCG was already questioning the compensation and the salaries. So now we're 11 years later. Why is this being brought up again now? Why wasn't it addressed? We could have done this last session. We could have done it. We're 11 years out now. So could you explain to me and walk me back to what happened with that initiative in 2012, and why are we looking at this right now in 2023?
Well, first of all, our policy position is not paid. It's been changed. It's been frequent or constant at the ACCG. That sounds correct. The last time we'd seen legislation on this. What has changed now is it made the news in Atlanta. I had spoken with Senator Kirkpatrick. She was interested in pursuing the legislation. We've already had a position supporting it, so we are happy to work with her on this bill.
I'll jump in there. This is a stack of news articles that's come out since November, and I think that the profile of this issue really got raised by the specific situation that happened in Cobb, and that's certainly one of the reasons that it's coming up again now. And sadly, I don't even think that many of the elected officials in my county knew that this was happening, and that's part of the problem, is that disclosure piece.
Yes, thank you. I also was kind of interested in the history of this, and would kind of like to explain to the public how we got here. And from my understanding, it goes back to the days when counties really didn't operate as municipalities. They didn't offer services, and so those services were provided by constitutional offices at the state office. Back like 50 years ago, those services were provided on a fee-for-service basis. That's why we have this. So it goes back like 50 years, and it's sort of just left over from those times. My only wish is that we had done this sooner. And I hate to react to recent news about certain people when this has been going on for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And I also, in doing this research, found that the ACCG had made this a priority issue in 2012, and it is 11 years later. So I would like to, just kind of go on record as saying that we are finally cleaning this up. We should have cleaned it up a long time ago, and I don't think we should pin the issue on certain individuals now when this has been going on for so long.
I would agree with you, and I would not want to suggest that this is about an individual necessarily. That just is what brought it to light and made many people aware of it that had really never heard of this issue before.
All right. Senator Parrott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks so much for bringing the bill and for being with us, Todd. I guess my question is, can you think of, or might there be, and we may hear from other speakers about this, any public policy reason you could think of as to why it would be justifiable or a good idea? You mentioned, you sort of said, hey, you might hear they might not want to do it, but we disagree with that. Anything else that's said as to any sort of reason in the interest of the public for which this current fee system is beneficial?
I haven't heard of a good public policy reason that these fees should be taken as personal income and not disclosed.
I would say it is a good public policy and a convenience to the public to have this option available to, issue passport applications. As far as the personal fees, I mean, it could be argued that, I don't want to speak for the clerks or the probate judges, but obviously this does add some additional work to their offices. But again, you can increase that budget through several methods other than just giving a personal fee to be kept, or fee to be kept as personal compensation, when in fact, a lot of times this work is done by other employees, and again, on the county, the county dollar, for lack of a better word, county time, county resources, and overhead. But it is a service. It is enjoyed by the public. It may add some time, but you can address those budgetary issues through other factors. If y'all decided to eventually keep some sort of as personal compensation, I would suggest then, run it through the county payroll. First of all, disclose it. They could always have these conversations with the county during budgeting time, county commissioners who set the budgets for all 4 constitutional officers. They could go to their legislators. They could ask for a state supplement. They could go to their local government and ask for a local supplement to take care of all that. But if fees is a personal compensation, frankly, ACCG does not believe that to be sound public policy.
Senator Robertson, is that you?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Edwards, this document here that y'all generated, I just want to be clear, these are just county governments these are the clerks of the individual county governments? How was this?
The clerks that responded, yes. So
Okay.
you go up front, and this is how you calculate the salary of Superior Court clerks in the
Right.
state of Georgia. Now, this is going by the graph on the first page is the minimum base salary. But then we actually surveyed the counties, and I would hope that there was all correct information provided, but it takes you through an example. If you pick a particular county, if you're interested in one, I'll go through that row with you.
And that's the question.
You take, yeah.
You can't, Harris,
Harris would have not responded to the survey if they're
Muskogee?
not included in this.
yeah. Apparently, the counties in District 29 did not respond.
We do a lot. In all fairness, we do a lot of surveys on a lot of issues, handling as much as we do at ACCG. A lot of times we get great responses. I think this is better than average for response. But remember, we did this for every office too, with every county.
Well, I worked with a lot of Superior Court clerks through my career, and what I'm curious is, when's the last time ACCG has championed and gotten through a pay raise for the Superior Court clerks of the counties?
Well, now getting through a pay raise comes through different forms.
And I heard you explain.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so,
all of the difference.
the last time, I believe, in there was a 5% jump in the base pay, which is this bracket up front that went through in 2019. I believe that was effective in 2021. They get automatic pay raises with longevity increases. Again, anytime the state calls us. So we were not in support of that bill to bump the base pay, but we don't oppose every time the state employees get a pay raise or a COLA in that case, which automatically applies.
Right. And so when we find a gap in a specific elected position, it seems like we get a little pushback on that. But when the state steps up and does it across the board, and did the census change the base salary at all? Are these the newest base salaries based on population?
They were taken in from the 2020, but in several counties it may have pushed them into a higher bracket when you look at the population numbers, but this would have taken that into account if that was your
Thank
question.
you, Mr. Chairman. My final question: What did you set the cap at probate? At do you know?
Yeah, y'all said it. State law said it at $7,000.
Okay, I'll reframe my question. Do you know what we set the cap at?
Yes, sir.
for probate court?
$7,500.
$7,500 in additional fees pulled from services offered by that particular office.
Maximum amount of fees to be kept as compensation by the probate judge.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Senator Merritt.
I'm noticing that our big four, the salaries aren't on here.
Again,
We're talking Gwinnett, Fulton, Cobb, DeKalb. Is there a reason why?
they would not have responded to our survey.
But you did ask.
Yes, we asked all counties. No, we asked the county governing authority, those who budget for these offices. It would have not taken into consideration the fees as personal compensation.
So that was not included y'all requested it, but it did not come back to you.
That's correct.
I'm sorry,
those counties.
just like Harris.
And I would add that those are likely governed, those counties, by local act. Remember, there are local acts, particularly for our larger counties, that spell out the fees or the compensation. This is on front is the state minimal salary. They get the higher of the two.
All right. Most of this, or a lot of the passport issue, as I understand, I was just going to make sure, as I understand it, has been the slowness at the federal level to be able to get something done, and that's caused a lot of this to happen at the local level. Do you know anything about that at all? Is that because I know that people have gone to get passports like at the post office, and they're told it'll take 8 weeks or whatever, but they could go to their local people. That has also driven this, am I correct?
I would imagine so it is. Like I stated earlier, it was a public service, an added convenience, and they're providing this service. But again, as elected officials, that's something that they choose whether or not to do at the local level. I would imagine that it would be quite popular amongst the voting public to provide this service as an elected official. We just disagree with the
Yeah,
compensation.
let me just add one thing to that. Another reason that this probably has come to light now, as opposed to several years ago, is because of the pandemic really shut down travel for a couple of years at least. And so as things have opened back up, there's been a large number of people who are traveling again and who are getting their passports taken care of. So I would imagine that that accounts for why this is suddenly a bigger issue than it was, say, pre-pandemic.
In these larger counties that we're talking about right now, basically your bill, how does it address those larger counties? I know we have some transparency issues that we're talking about, but does it change anything that they're currently doing, or is that going to have to be done through local legislation?
No, it changes it statewide for everyone to have to disclose
Okay.
the passport fees, and in addition to split the money between the county and the clerk's office to be used to cover expenses. So that impacts everybody.
Okay, so they will have to divide it among their staff, I'm assuming, that are processing. Does your bill specifically address they have to be a part of that, or is that for the whole office from that standpoint, these fees? Do the fees go strictly to those people who handle this process, or is it a department-wide
It
type?
would go to the clerk's office.
Go to the clerk's office, okay.
Or the probate judge's office in that situation. Right, 50-50, unless they agree on something different with a written agreement, which they can do according to the substitute bill.
Yeah, they could either, the county and the clerk or probate's offices can come to a mutual agreement to split that division, or y'all can do so through local legislation. If I may, Mr. Chairman, I do have a list of all known that we found clerk and probate judge offices that do issue United States passport applications, or what they call it, executing passport applications, if I may provide to the committee.
Okay. Get that, and we'll get.
Without permission.
Go ahead. We'll get that out to everybody as far as that, because we're doing a hearing only. But your bill though does not allow them to use this for personal compensation, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, Senator Robertson, you.
Yeah, really quick. Mr. Edwards, you brought something up, and I find it interesting. So basically what I'm hearing is 50% goes back to the operations of the clerk's office, and then 50% would go in the general fund of the county, correct, operating expenses or operating funds, if you will. Is there anything in the bill that prevents the county from reapportioning money that they currently give the clerks based on the amount that they generate from the passport fees? In other words, if they, and we'll just throw a number out there, let's say that the total is $100,000. $50,000 would go into general fund, $50,000 would go into the clerk's office. What are the opportunities of the local government to say, well, look, they're getting $50,000 from the passport fees, therefore we can cut their overall budget by $50,000. They can supplant it with the $50,000 from the fees, because then it's just a push. There is no gain by the clerk's office for this service that seems to be, based on the numbers, extremely important in some communities.
There's nothing in the bill governing that.
Yeah, because what we found in the past, that anytime we sent something back to the government based on a fee, whether it's for public safety, whether it's for operating another government department, they tend to use that fund to supplant current funding, therefore leaving more money in the general fund to be used for whatever reason the city council or county commission may so choose. So I'm just curious if maybe that's something we can discuss as we move forward.
Now, the bill doesn't specifically address this at this point. Obviously, it's a work in progress. I'm sure that's why we're having a hearing only today.
Thank you.
And may I add, I would say for better or worse, the county governing authority does make the budgetary decisions, so that elected by, so that is, they do take things into consideration. I can't answer whether that may or may not be one of them.
And if I
Thank
could just add one thing, Mr. Chair, our court clerks do important work, and I do support them being paid appropriately and would support pay raises that they negotiate.
Thank you for bringing it forward. I think the transparency issue is major among all of us, and I thank you for that. We have a couple of people signed up for comment, for public comment, and let's see, is it Deborah Clerk? Yes, hello, okay. Yeah, you can, what's that? If you'd state your name, where you're from, I would appreciate that. Thank you. And you're dressed in red, so very good.
I'm supporting our dogs.
Oh, okay, okay.
And we have a clerk, Stetson Bennett's grandmother from Wayne County, so she's in red also.
And it's pre-Valentine Day too, right?
Right.
You got it all covered, okay.
I'm Deborah DeBerry, clerk of Superior Court in DeKalb County, the great county of DeKalb. I run a $50 million a year enterprise in my office. We generated $48 million in revenue last year that did go to my county. My focus on being a federal passport agent is on the service we provide. And as some of the comments made earlier today, it has, especially since the pandemic, it's gone up quite a bit. The federal government was actually shut down and was not processing, and the only ones that we processed were on life or death emergency situations during the pandemic. But between the 3 Metro clerks that were targeted in the media, we processed and served close to 30,000 citizens last year. Those 30,000 citizens otherwise would not have been able to get a passport timely to travel. And as I hear from many citizens that are still filling our offices, that I was about to have to fly to D.C., I was going to have to fly to New York, we were going to have to cancel our trip. I did speak with the federal director of passports because they actually are sending them. They're no longer taking walk-ins. It takes 10 weeks to just get an appointment. So when walk-ins show up at the federal office, we can't take you, go to the clerk's office. The post office in downtown Decatur at one point was handing out my cards. How they got them, I'm not sure, but they hand out my cards because, so the need is great. The feds will call us and say, can you process passports this Saturday? We've got more that have to be done. So it is a huge service that we're providing, and it's a necessary service that we're providing. It is additional work. It is not part of our constitutional duty, and I think that's probably why if the supplement, the federal supplement goes away, most clerks will cease to do passports. We take them into cab also, walk-ins, don't turn anybody away, and appointments are not required. Also, between the 3 targeted clerks, and that would be myself in DeKalb, Tiana Garner in Gwinnett County, and Tina Robinson in Fulton County, we generate annually over $100,000 to state revenue in the form of state income tax. We do the same also to the federal tax base, what we almost at a higher rate though. And those funds would not go to state revenue if the execution fees went to the county because they're tax exempt. And so we do support our government financially, heavily. through the acceptance of execution fees. One of the misconceptions in the media and in Senate Bill 19 is that there is no transparency. That is absolutely not true. I have 3 audits every year on passports, 1 for Homeland Security, 2 financial audits, 1 internal, 1 external. Now, these audits are performed by the county. As a constitutional officer, I am under no obligation to accept or take or have these audits done, the financial audits done in my office, but I have a fiduciary responsibility to taxpayers, and so I always welcome these audits. Passports has its own line item, always have. They know what goes to the county. They know what I send some passport fees to the county. They know what goes to the county, what I keep, how many passports were processed. They know this every year. It is clear and it is transparent. So I don't know how, as I recall, in some of the media inquiries, what are you doing with your money that you keep? And of course, it is personal income that we pay heavily on taxes. And that's problematic with the bill, that if how you keep something and use it for your office and still be responsible for paying taxes on it. So that's another issue. And as the senator mentioned, it's a work in progress. Senate Bill 19 also suggests adding a cap. And we as clerks don't use caps for the good of all. For example, Metro clerks carry the retirement benefit for all clerks in the state of Georgia, as well as supporting the Georgia Superior Court Clerks Authority that supports clerks in the entire state in technology, equipment, training, and such. And it is through the filing, the work that is processed by Metro clerks that support the entire state. So a clerk in Webster County, the smallest county, to Fulton County, the largest, all clerks get the same retirement, even though all clerks don't pay into that at that level for retirement, as an example, around caps.
Okay.
Clerks are one of 4 constitutional officers. You have the sheriff, probate, tax commissioner, and some have mentioned this earlier, and yet this bill targets clerks, sort of singles us out. When these other constitutional officers are similarly situated and have personal income supplements in various ways. I think one of the things that was left out on the probate side was a carry license, and I think that's on the federal side, but that's another story, and again, it's a work in
I'm gonna wrap up because I got 2 more.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Governor Kemp has said that Georgia is a business and industry friendly state. And as his initiative to continue the economic development and growth continues, impeding and restricting clerks or not allowing the execution fees can substantially impact the continued economic growth and development. And as the late and great Speaker Ralston recognized the importance of clerks in continuing the passport process, because when these bills came before him, he said, no, what they do is important. We are also asking and hoping you recognize the same. Thank you.
Okay, hold on, you have one question from Senator Roberts.
Yes, ma'am. And Madam Clerk, you're the constitutional elected Superior Court Clerk for DeKalb?
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes,
How many employees do you currently have in your office?
about 110.
Of that 110, how many of them are strictly required to handle the passport applications?
One.
Okay.
And I have two. I process them. It depends on the crowd.
Right.
And then those same employees, if there is no one there to get a passport, they do other functions.
And this fee is based on the application for the passport, correct?
The $35?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, the $35 is set by the federal government. In fact, in 2018, it was raised from $25 to $35 to further incentivize clerks and agencies to continue to process passports.
Yeah, and in full disclosure, my wife worked for a congressman and understands the process very well, and still runs a pro bono cottage industry out of our house for families who get in distress and have issues and need to be walked through the process. And she's been very successful at it because her personality is a lot better than mine. But so the accumulation of monies that we're talking about are coming from the $35 fee?
Correct.
Okay, once the $35 fee is paid, and y'all, where do you submit the application to?
To the lockbox, which is not
Not the funds, the application.
to the lockbox,
Okay,
which is not classified, but we can't give you the address.
yeah, I don't want to drill that deep
Okay.
into the spy world, but okay, it goes into this lockbox, into the abyss, as you say, and I assume that abyss ends up somewhere around Washington, D.C.
Eventually.
Yeah, where I think the abyss started. But and so once it gets up there, we're still dependent on the federal government to process everything and get it back, correct?
Correct.
So what you were doing, and there's no way for me to say this without it, basically what y'all are doing are assisting the individuals in filling out the application for the passport, charging them $35 to be able to take their application, take it over, put it in the lockbox, and get it to D.C. By doing it that way, what you're doing is preventing federal employees or alleviating the responsibility of federal employees in Atlanta. Say if you used to go to the post office box or the post office or the federal building and do this, so they don't have to process that. But there is no expediting of it
Yes,
through this
there is.
process.
Yes.
Okay, what's the difference between the expedition of it the way y'all are doing it? Is it the convenience of
Well,
walking
if you
in?
just to step back, if you went to the federal office or
Right.
if you go to the post office, the exact same process happens, and they have to send it to the lockbox.
Oh, no, I understand
Oh,
that.
okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So even at the federal office, the only difference is that when we have to do a congressional walkthrough,
Right.
and that goes through Washington, and they walk it over to the State
Right.
Department, then that's a full issuance.
But the service that y'all provide is the convenience of a citizen not having to go to a federal building and be told they have to wait a few weeks.
Correct.
Or going to a post office and filling out there, correct?
Correct, because only because of availability.
Okay, thank you.
We have one more question, Senator Islam. Is 5?
Me.
Me? Okay. Senator Say.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Passport acceptance agents are appointed by the United States Department, right?
Correct.
And the policy and regulations applied nationwide, right?
Correct.
So if it's not just Georgia, where's the problem? I'm trying to figure all of this language out. Help me.
I'm not sure. I believe that it was racially, gender, and politically driven. That's my personal belief. Since we, 3 African American women who also listed in the media our political affiliation as being Democrat, that it was driven by these.
Jesus. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We've got 2, and we want to be mindful because we've got other senators have other committees as well. Let's see, we've got, is it
Am I
Tehran
done?
Garden? Tiana, I'm sorry. Gardner, if you will. Give us the correct pronunciation of your name, and we'll get it right.
Tiana. It's
Tiana,
Tiana Garner.
okay.
And I'm the Superior Court Clerk in Gwinnett, just like Princess Tiana,
Thank
the
you.
Disney princess.
All right.
And she spells her name correctly. I just had a couple things that I really wanted to address and respond to, not so much as a statement like Ms. Clerk DeBerry. Another thing I wanted to point out is that 45% of all the passports that are done in the state are done in clerk's offices. And then it was said that some people, ACCG, had no idea, and Senator Kirkpatrick mentioned that they had no idea that the clerks were retaining money. This has been a longstanding practice. There's an Attorney General opinion from 1983 where the Attorney General of the state of Georgia said that passport fees should be retained as personal income for the clerk. In full disclosure, in 1983, I was 4 years old. So this is just a very long-standing practice. And then they say that there's no disclosure. That is simply not true. I received an open records request, which I responded to immediately. But even if you talk about disclosure, I'm subject to a county audit, which is internal. I'm subject to an external audit, as well as Homeland Security. At any time, ACCG has access to those audits and can ask for them and request them. My county finance also has access to this, and there's a line item in my county budget for passports. And most clerks operate the same way. So the disclosure is there. We're not hiding this. We've done nothing illegal. It's state law. So why would we hide that? And in another reason we oppose Senate Bill 19 is that they say 50% of it goes to the office, but the way that the bill is written, that doesn't even allow clerks as elected constitutional officers to buy gifts for our staff. We're not even allowed to buy them gifts or lunch, which many of us do. We're not allowed to do that. And I think what we're seeing here with this bill is that the bigger counties especially are being penalized post-pandemic because the world is opening up again and people are traveling. We're seeing more and more. Just for an example, in Gwinnett County, we helped process 92 applications just alone on Friday. And where you see smaller counties may do 92 in a month. We're just bigger counties, and all of us have populations of nearly 1 million people. The other electeds, a question was asked about other electeds. All constitutional officers, and there's 4, sheriffs, probate judges, tax commissioners, and superior court clerks, all have written into the statute ways to earn extra fees on top of what they get in salaries. And it was said that $7,500 is what the probate judges are capped at, unless the second part of the statute, and I'm a lawyer by trade. I was a lawyer before I was a clerk. And if you read the statute, it says that it's capped at $7,500 unless the county commission agrees to more. So the fees for probate judges can also be increased. And I had another point I wanted to make. It's been said that, oh, this is done on county time, it's taxpayer money, it's county money, and it's county employees. Well, my response to that is I am clerk of 4 courts. I have Superior Court, State Court, Magistrate Court, and Juvenile Court. I get a county supplement for all of those courts, and I have 136 employees. I am one person, and I cannot do all of that work, but Gwinnett County recognizes that I oversee and manage all of that, so I get a supplement, which is also personal income, to manage those courts. Passports is no different. It's a supplement that's personal income for putting my name out there and accepting additional responsibility and liability. I'm accountable to not only the voters and citizens of Gwinnett County, but I'm accountable to my Board of Commissioners, I'm accountable to my employees, and I'm accountable to the county employees. This is something that we talk about regularly. So those are just the points that I wanted to raise, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, we're good. Thank you. And Dana Chastain? Dana? Yes. All right. Thank you. If you'll give us your name and a little bit where you're from. Thank you. And we're close, but wrap her up.
I'm from Fannin County, a smaller. I'd just like to talk on the smaller points. I don't want to restate any of the other. I don't want to restate anything else, but I just wanted to add, since I am from a smaller county, that post offices in the rural areas don't do passports. So the burden is upon the clerk. And in my county, I don't do as many as some of the larger, but 200 to 300 per year. Just an example, in where I live on the North Georgia line, I touch Tennessee and North Carolina. And in those areas, you have to travel over 50 miles in some points to reach my county to get a passport. And some of the smaller counties have stopped doing them because they don't have the staff. And it does, each passport that you do, I try to do them all personally unless I'm in court or I'm traveling for training. And it takes about 20 to 30 minutes. We go through training every year, rigorous training. We have to pass a test making 90 or above. And some of the things that we're trained on, we're the first line of defense for fraud, abduction, human trafficking. And I know in a small county it doesn't happen, those things like it does in the larger, but there was an indictment brought against a school that moved to our small county, and they came in to get passports, and we sort of have relationships with these folks and ask them questions. We ask the kids questions just to make sure that everything's legit. And I was told not to ask these teenagers questions, that the instructors would answer anything that that I needed. So we have an observation list, and we're not to confront them with what we suspect. We're to fill out the observation list and send it in to the department with the application. And so those people were indicted because there was abductive behavior, there was abuse, and those types of things. We personally, we go out to schools when they're doing school trips, churches, or other different boards or parties that they're taking trips, and we do those things on our own time, after work, on Saturdays. Out of the $35, there's a postage fee that's almost $10. The postage is $9.65 now. And for expedite, it's almost $30. And when you pay taxes, we personally pay the taxes, and once you pay federal and the Social Security tax, if we do keep it as personal compensation, it's dependent on what tax bracket you do fall in. It's anywhere from $5 to $10 personal compensation if you break it down in that way.
Thank you for giving us a smaller county's version of what goes on. Hold on, you have a question? Senator Say?
Is
Senator.
it illegal or improper for a passport accepting agent to retain those fees?
No, it's in the
Okay.
law. It's a federal law.
Yeah, I knew that. I just, we got all of this going on. I'm just trying to get
Right.
really, really.
And transparency is key, and we are transparent.
Okay, thank you very much for that. And that is our last of our sign-ups, and this was a hearing only, but thank you for coming in
Thank you.
and giving us both sides, large and small.
Thank you.
All right, with that, we will dismiss, and thank everyone for all they being here, and we will work from there. Thank you.